Talking about that quarterback situation, you talked about Trey Lance, obviously the uncertainty. We got to talk about it for 2023 because right now, the 49ers have 0 healthy quarterbacks. They have 1 that will be available at OTAs. What do you make of the entire quarterback situation?
It went from being a good problem to have to a bad problem to have. When the season was rolling, you're thinking, well, they got Brock Purdy. This is his job. And eventually, Trey Lance can get a shot if Brock gets hurt. Well, the injury happened faster than we thought. And it's more serious than we. It is serious. We don't know how serious, but this could affect his career. This could affect next season. We don't know what his arm is going to look like when he comes back. We don't know how he's going to play. We don't know when exactly he's coming back. So all of a sudden, it's like you got 2 quarterbacks coming off injuries. 2. And they're both essentially rookies in the sense that one has 4 starts and one has 8. Now, one's been in big games, and they're both young, and they both have talent. But right now, you went from saying, hey, maybe the Niners have 2 franchise quarterbacks to maybe they have none. Maybe neither one is the guy. Maybe DeMeco Ryans going to Houston is in a better situation long-term because he could get Bryce Young, and that guy could be the truth, and Kyle's over here with a great team that is quarterbackless. It's a quarterback-driven league. I don't know. I mean, we all wanted to know, is Brock good enough to win a Super Bowl? Well, we don't know now. We don't know. We'll have to wait another year. And is Trey good enough? He has the talent profile, but is he even a good quarterback? We don't know. They never let him play. So, I mean, honestly, this season could get weird. They don't have the Jimmy Garoppolo safety net where if things get crazy, they can just throw him in and be respectable and say we won 10, 11, 12 games. That they could legitimately have a bad year. Things could get weird. Quarterbacks could get hurt or just disappoint, and they could go 5-12 or whatever it is. So Kyle is sort of walking a tightrope without a safety net for the first time in a while. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to go somewhere. Man, it's going to be so funny to see both of those people wish the other one to fail next year. Like, where you at, Jimmy? Where you at, Kyle? What are you doing? What are you doing without me? What are you doing without me? It's going to be kind of like Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, except 2 guys, like the Bizarro version of that. 2 guys who never won anything with each other, now hoping they each other fail. I don't know.
We'll see, because right now, here's how I view it. Trey Lance goes into the offseason as quarterback 1, specifically because he's the only quarterback that is going to be able to throw a football come OTAs. But we don't know where the front office kind of or the coaching staff kind of thinks on the quarterback situation. Seems like they could prefer Purdy. But right now, I think Lance is going to get the opportunity to show if he's the guy. He's going to get a couple of months to work with the number 1 team for the 2nd consecutive year. And come training camp, one quote that I thought from Kyle Shanahan was interesting was he thought that the quarterback situation in a way would be figured out by training camp, meaning if Lance can show that he's the guy, they'll probably roll with him with the 1s and roll with Purdy as the competition, but him at the 2s. But if Lance doesn't show enough in that situation, and you're going to be there, you're going to see enough, they're going to roll with Purdy likely. The only thing is the issue with that plan, it's contingent on Purdy's health, which nobody at the moment has any clue really. Like 6-month timeline, there could be a setback. There could be a whole lot of things. And the number one thing, there could be lingering soreness with his arm come training camp time.
I think when people think about this question, they think a lot of like, what does Kyle want to do at the quarterback position? I don't look at it that way. Again, I think of him as the offensive coordinator in charge. Kyle the coordinator, not Shanahan the coach. And to me, the people that make this decision are the leaders in the locker room. Kyle, the coordinator, drafted Trey Lance. The leaders in the locker room said, absolutely not. Jimmy's our friend. Who is this guy? Blah, 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 blah. And it didn't work. And Kyle capitulated. Yeah. He backed down, which I think was a bad call. I think it set a bad precedent for who, is in charge on this team. So look, some fans don't like Mike Silver. If Mike Silver's, no, it wasn't even Mike Silver. Forget Mike Silver. Matt Mayoko. It was Matt Mayoko. Matt Mayoko said he spoke to a player off the record. He said there would be a lot of players in this team would be pissed if Brock isn't the starter next year if he's healthy. Well, that's the way it is. And Kyle's not overruling him. That's just the way it is. So it's Brock's going to be QB1 if he's healthy. But, dude, I don't know about it. They keep saying, oh, he'll be fine. Early indications are he's not going to need the Tommy John. He'll just need he'll be 6 months. But he is getting a second opinion, which is totally his right. It's like, is there a disagreement going on behind closed doors? What exactly? Wasn't he supposed to make his mind up yesterday? I thought Matt Barrow said he was about to make up his mind. I'd like to know what the story is there and when he's actually going to have a procedure. It's been almost 2 weeks.
Right.
No procedure.
That's a very
time is of the essence, right?
No, that's literally a very good question because, like, the 6-month timeline only starts when that procedure happens. And
Right!
we've heard from Lynch the 6 months. We've heard, source says the 6 months, 6 months, 6 months. Well, what if
6
it
months from
happens
today is August 7th. That's like
August?
2 weeks into training
No, no,
camp.
no. That is literally the last 5 days. You have 5
That's
days.
the last
before
5. Training camp starts in July.
Yeah.
So even the most optimistic projection has Brock Purdy missing the first 2 weeks of training camp, what's training camp, like 4 weeks?
It's
5 weeks?
3-ish weeks.
It's 3 weeks, and then preseason starts.
Yeah.
So he'll probably miss training camp, which means he won't be ready for preseason. They're not just going to throw him into games. And then when he does get back, if they fast forward him like this, what's his arm going to be? Well, they'll find out. And if it's not up to, all of a sudden, what if they can't throw outside the numbers this year or ever again with Brock? Then what is he? I'm telling you, man, they should just shut him down, give him the reconstruction, because if he comes back with a slightly stronger arm, that could be your franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
That could be your guy. But if he comes back with a weaker arm, he might be nothing. Nothing. He might be your backup long term. I don't know. But again, Kyle is Kyle on the hot seat? Is he going to make a lot of short-term decisions because he has to make the playoffs next year? I don't know.
And we'll talk about that in a minute, but I do want to ask, do you think it's Kyle or do you think it's Brock? Because Brock said at the end of the season, his number one goal, I want to play in 2023 come week 1. Do you think Brock's feeling the pressure because of obviously the starting job? Do you think he's feeling it or do you think Kyle's feeling the pressure, a little bit of both?
It's hard to take either one at face value when they talk on this subject publicly because what Brock wants to project is, I'm a team guy. If I'm not making a business decision, you know what I mean? I'm so tough. Nothing could keep me off the field. Like, that's what you have to project as a football player, right? I'm a savage and I play for the love of the game, not for the money. And I don't even think of the business side. Like, that's the stupid stuff you have to pretend. So that's what he's just playing the game at this point, I would imagine. But the fact that he's gotten a second opinion and a third opinion means that some people in his camp, his agent, his parents, him, are savvy and know what they're doing. He's a quarterback in the NFL. I'm sure he has good representation. I'm sure he has good people advising him.
And we've talked about it, right? How the timeline might be literally at the end of training camp, which might push him to not even being ready for the start of the season. But
which means you need Trey Lance to be great, and you need how many backup quarterbacks for just to get through practices in OTAs, minicamp, and training camp. Like, you need 3 new quarterbacks to come in here.
You're right, because they normally do carry they carry at least 3, which means you're going to need at least 2, and then the practice squad quarterback, if they're likely going to carry 3 because Purdy's going to be on the roster if he's healthy week 1. He's going to be on the roster, be it as the backup. They're going to sign the guy who's going to be on the roster, and Lance, and then the practice squad. So that's going to be
Jacob Eason.
Yeah, that'll be 4.
Jacob Eason, Kurt Benkert. Shout out Kurt Benkert. Who else? Josh Johnson. No, man. Honestly, we got to talk about this. Like, if Sean McVay could get Baker Mayfield up to speed to win a game in 2 days, there's no excuse for having Josh Johnson on your roster simply because he knows your system. Who cares? Baker Mayfield didn't know a damn thing and won a game. Like, you need a guy who can win a game if he has to play. And that was never the deal with Josh Johnson. He was essentially like a coach on the practice field, which is nice, but you got coaches. Greasy was doing a good job. There was no one physically better who had maybe played in a playoff game that Kyle could find. He had months to get the guy up to speed. We had weeks. He had weeks. Multiple weeks. I don't know. That's another rant of mine for Kyle. Like, come on, dude. Extend yourself a little bit here. Sean McVay did.
But we talk about it, right? The quarterback situation. We talk about the timeline. Despite all of this, we've seen the pushback against Trey Lance. People, be it locker room, people are furious, or people would be mad if it's not Purdy. We've heard, obviously, the fans not necessarily show the happiness towards Trey Lance. What's the issue? Why is there such a divide despite Trey Lance right now projecting to be the day one guy?
The way the organization set up Lance, he was the guy that was coming in to kick out their friend, Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo was their friend. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They were bad, and he came from New England, and he was cool and they started winning and he was down to earth and they loved him. And then, you know what I mean? It's like, it was a little cliquey. You brought in this guy, this outsider that no one knew, and he was going to kick out your friend? And like, what has he accomplished? So there's all of that. And I think there's also just the fact that Kyle Shanahan was sort of like telling two messages. He told the team, guys, you won the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Both got held. We're the best team. Let's party anyway. Lil Wayne's waiting for us. You know, all that stuff. He still says they were the best team that year. So if that's true, then the logical leap is there's no need to change anything. Why would we move? Why would we change our quarterback? He was good enough. We were the team. And then a year later, you don't just change a quarterback, but you trade 3 years worth of first round picks. Like, so all of a sudden that validates my side. You know, the team saying we're great. I'm like, no, you guys aren't good enough. You have to hold this L, own it, and learn from it. And they never wanted to. And by bringing in Trey Lance, it acknowledged like, hey, I guess we got to hold our L, learn from it, and be different. And they didn't ever want to do it. So when he got hurt this year, what did Kyle Juszczyk say? Oh, it felt like a return to 49er football. There's a specific type of football they want to play. It looks like what they did in the NFC, in the Super Bowl. Why is there a revenge tour? To prove that they were good enough. To prove that they were the best as is. That's what their whole mission statement is. And if they never win a Super Bowl, they're going to be like the most out of touch, in denial group of, you know, former athletes ever saying we should have won this. People are not going to care, dude. People think they're going to win. They give Kyle the benefit of the doubt, thinking it's next year it's going to come. Next year it's going to. If they miss their window entirely, they're just going to go down as like the Houston Rockets of the NFL. And you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
The Mike D'Antoni Houston Rockets. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. And I mean, when you talk about it, it's interesting, right? Because obviously, you mentioned Kyle Juszczyk, another guy who's been a big proponent of Jimmy Garoppolo, not necessarily pointing fingers or anything, is George Kittle. And funny enough, you talked about 2017. 2017 was the year that Kyle Shanahan came, but it was also the year he drafted George Kittle and brought in Kyle Juszczyk to be one of the figureheads, one of the guys to make the transition. He was brought in as one of the higher paid guys.
They were in the same pledge class.
Yeah.
Yes, same pledge class.
Oh my God! Yeah, and then you bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, and they see this change of play, right? From Brian Hoyer, from those guys in 2017 to Jimmy Garoppolo. And let's be honest, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't play that good in 2017. He had 7 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, but they won games. They won 5 games in a row, and
Kyle couldn't win without him.
That's
Kyle couldn't win without him, and I think certain veterans on this team that take a little bit too much liberty feel like, you know, who is Kyle? Why does he think? It's Jimmy and it's us. You know, let's show Kyle, and now Kyle could kind of show like, hey, you see this what we can do with Brock? But then they come back to, yeah, but you can't keep any quarterback healthy. So who's right here? But anyway, I think there was a little bit of that going on. I think there was Jimmy and some of the vets being like, hey, Kyle, you're not as great as you think you are. You haven't proven you can win without him. And then Kyle wanting to prove that. And then Jimmy smiling his ass off on the sideline during this game.
That was funny.
Bad look. Although I'm sure someone was just telling him a joke and he happened to be laughing about it.
It was literally probably a conversation, but it's Jimmy Garoppolo, and everyone, you know, wants to do what they want to do to Jimmy Garoppolo.
Also, he knows he's on the sideline. He knows the cameras are on him. I mean, he already got – his agent was like, dude, don't – or do it. Maybe the agent was like, hey, man, don't hold back. Who knows? Who knows? But these guys, he's so media trained. I mean, some of these players are so media trained. Like, these aren't things they were like, oh, I didn't think about that. Like, no, you know the camera's on you. You're Jimmy Garoppolo. You're not, I'm not going to say some, but you know what I mean. You're not like freaking, I'm not going to say a player who's not important, but you're not a player who's not important.